This is a follow-up to Joe's recent video, and his new channel will be mentioned in my sidebar here. It has absolutely nothing to do with copyright issues. Terms of use in terms of YouTube or Google, it is an official communication from a government official to another government official here in the United States. It is public. It is public information. It is all out there. The Federation of American Scientists has published this letter verbatim. It is for fair use, and I will read this letter to you. And it has not been mentioned on the mainstream media whatsoever. It is completely fair use, and if my video gets taken down then by YouTube or anyone else, then you can draw your own conclusions if my video or my channel gets suspended after reading this letter. Essentially, this letter came from Dick Cheney, and it was addressed to Jesse Helms, Chairman, Committee on Foreign Relations at the United States Senate, and it was dated April 7th, 1997. This document has just been made public. It is for fair use purposes, and I'm passing this information on. Dick Cheney essentially has said that he is against the convention towards prohibiting chemical weapons or chemical weapons warfare within the United States or anywhere else. And I will read this letter to you verbatim. Dear Mr. Chairman. Now, this is Dick Cheney's letter to Jesse Helms. Thank you for your letter inviting me to join several other former Secretaries of Defense in testifying in early April when the Foreign Relations Committee holds hearings on the Chemical Weapons Convention. Regrettably, other commitments will preclude me from participation. I hope that this correspondence will be sufficient to convey my views on this convention. Again, this is Dick Cheney's letter to the Committee Chairman of Foreign Relations in the Senate. During the years I served as Secretary of Defense, I was deeply concerned about the inherent unverifiability, lack of global coverage, and unenforceability of a convention that sought a ban to production and stockpiling of chemical weapons. My misgivings on these scores have only intensified during the 4 years since I left the Pentagon. The technology to manufacture chemical weapons is simply too ubiquitous, covert chemical warfare programs too easily concealed, and the international community's record of responding effectively to violations of arms control treaties too unsatisfactory to permit confidence that such a regime would actually reduce the chemical threat. And I would like to interject my own opinion here, and this is me talking. The chemical threat that came from Saddam Hussein gassing his own people in Iraq was permitted by the United States government. And Cheney and Rumsfeld knew all about it when it was happening. But as I say, Cheney's letter now continues. Indeed, some aspects of the present convention notably its obligation to share with potential adversaries like Iran chemical manufacturing technology that can be used for military purposes and chemical warfare and defensive equipment, threaten to make this accord worse than having no treaty at all. In my judgment, and this is Dick Cheney talking here in this letter, in my judgment, the treaty articles X and XI amount to a formula for greatly accelerating the proliferation of chemical warfare capabilities around the globe. Those nations most likely to comply with chemical weapons conventions are not likely to ever constitute a military threat to the United States. The governments we should be concerned about are likely to cheat on the Chemical Weapons Convention, even if they do participate. In effect, the Senate is being asked to ratify the Chemical Weapons Convention, even though it is likely to be completely ineffective, unverifiable, and unenforceable. Having ratified the convention, we will then be told we have dealt with the problem of chemical weapons, when in fact we have not. But ratification of the Chemical Weapons Convention will lead to a sense of complacency, totally unjustified given the flaws in the convention. I would urge the Senate to reject the Chemical Weapons Convention. Sincerely, Dick Cheney. Now, as far as I know, the only nations that have defied this treaty are the United States and the other great nation, which is the other great superpower, which no longer exists on paper, the Soviet Union. So all of these countries have, of course, a stake in this. And for Dick Cheney to say that this weapons convention was not enforceable is basically a fait accompli without even trying to do such a thing. It has worked actually for many years. You know, the theory of assured mutual destruction in terms of nuclear weapons actually worked very well because of the mutual threat concerned. But now with only one superpower or perceived superpower in place, namely the empire of the United States, that might just become very unbalanced and very dangerous for the world population as a whole, as long as we insist, or as long as our government insists that these conventions no longer hold any sway. That is my little commentary for today, and hopefully my video will stay up for a little while and we can discuss it later. Thanks.